On that day they sacrificed to the Lord 700 cattle and 7,000 sheep and goats from the plunder they had taken in the battle. Just from the plunder. Then they entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all their heart and soul. All in Judah were happy about this covenant, for they had entered into it with all their heart. They earnestly sought after God, and they found him. And the Lord gave them rest from their enemies on every side. So, they got all this cattle and sheep, and probably more, from the plunder that they took from the battle against the Cushites. What's up, cool people? My name is Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. We're looking at 2 Chronicles chapter 15. Okay, so within our sort of recap of the history of Israel, we're at King Asa. I don't know if that's actually the pronunciation, but that's what I'm going with. King Asa of Judah. And so what I think after Solomon, it was Rehoboam, and then this is like 2 generations later. Last chapter, he got into there was a really big attack by Cush/Ethiopia. Cush is what it was known by then. Ethiopia is just like the modern day area. And King Asa here prayed to God, trusted God to save them, and not only did they, remain alive, but it was a resounding victory. They even kind of looted some plunder from the Cushites. So after that resounding success, and prior to that, he had also kind of made an effort to tear down a bunch of idols to other gods and things like that. But after all that happened, and then the big victory and whatnot, then we get to this chapter here. So, 2 Chronicles, chapter 15. Then the Spirit of God came upon Azariah, son of Oded, and he went to meet King Asa as he was returning from the battle. "Listen to me, Asa," he shouted. "Listen, all you people of Judah and Benjamin. The Lord will stay with you as long as you stay with him. Whenever you seek him, you will find him. But if you abandon him, he will abandon you. For a long time Israel was without the true God, without a priest to teach them, and without the law to instruct them. But whenever they were in trouble and turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought him out, they found him. During those dark times, it was not safe to travel. Problems troubled the people of every land. Nation fought against nation, and city against city, for God was troubling them with every kind of problem. But as for you, be strong and courageous, for your work will be rewarded." Interesting, ominous music my computer happens to be playing in the background. That's the kind of bad that was happening before and would be expected if they turned away from God. Anywho. So, it wasn't necessarily just that, when the battle was happening last chapter, it wasn't just that King Asa prayed to God to help, save us. And I mean, sometimes that is all that's necessary for God to respond and help and save. In fact, go to the New Testament, read some stuff in there. I forget where exactly, possibly Romans, where it says that while we were still sinners, aka not following God, desiring God, while we were sinners, Christ died for us. So, God is good even when we're not. But in any case, in the context of this Old Testament situation with the Israelites living in the Promised Land, specifically Judah in this case, and maybe Benjamin, but the kingdom of Judah. There have been multiple times where they have been told, not necessarily these people, but generations of God's people have been told, follow God and he'll be with you. Turn away from God and he will abandon you. And of course, it's when they turn away that the trouble comes for them specifically. That's essentially the warning that Azariah is saying here, which it seems a little odd that he would say it specifically, although maybe not so much. I was going to say it seems odd to sort of preach to the choir here and say it to someone who was already tearing down idols and, helping the people seek after God. But, maybe saying it to someone who would actually pay attention and listen and do something about it is why, the Spirit comes upon Azariah and he says this to King Asa in this situation. Because Asa has already shown that he wants to follow the Lord and, will take action to help the people of his kingdom also follow the Lord their God. Let me move on now. I feel like I've talked about that bit for a little while. On to verse 8. When Asa heard this message from Azariah the prophet, he took courage and removed all the detestable idols from the land of Judah and Benjamin, and in the towns he had captured in the hill country of Ephraim. And he repaired the altar of the Lord, which stood in front of the entry room of the Lord's temple. Then Asa called together all the people of Judah and Benjamin, along with the people of Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon, who had settled among them. For many from Israel had moved to Judah during Asa's reign, when they saw that the Lord his God was with him. The people gathered at Jerusalem in late spring, during the 15th year of Asa's reign. I don't know if he had some doubts about whether he was supposed to be tearing down the idols that he did, or anything like that, but clearly hearing this message made him that much bolder to go ahead and keep doing that. And it says he removed all, note that word, all the detestable idols from the land of Judah and Benjamin, and basically anything that was within his kingdom, any area that was within his kingdom. He had, it noted before that he started tearing down those idols, but it didn't say that he had, gotten rid of all of them yet. Now it says he's gotten rid of all of them. There is no idol there to distract the people and tear them away from worshiping their God. And then I guess he has gathered them together for something. We'll see what in the following verses. But let me check the notes here real quick. As in Syriac version and Latin Vulgate, Hebrew reads from Oded the prophet, but Azariah was his son. In a way, I could see some of the original manuscripts wording it as if it came from Oded because it was his son who prophesied. Either that, or the Spirit actually came upon Azariah, who then told Oded, and then Oded told the king. Either way, there is somebody, one of these two, prophesied to the king. And then there's one other note down here at the end of verse 10, or actually kind of halfway through it. Hebrew says it's in the 3rd month. And this month of the ancient Hebrew lunar calendar usually occurs within the months of May and June, which is why it says late spring here. So that was around the time of year that the people gathered. So then, verse 11. On that day they sacrificed to the Lord 700 cattle and 7,000 sheep and goats from the plunder they had taken in the battle. Just from the plunder. Then they entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all their heart and soul. They agreed that anyone who refused to seek the Lord, the God of Israel, would be put to death, whether young or old, man or woman. They shouted out their oath of loyalty to the Lord with trumpets blaring and ram's horns sounding. All in Judah were happy about this covenant, for they had entered into it with all their heart. They earnestly sought after God, and they found him. And the Lord gave them rest from their enemies on every side. King Asa even deposed his grandmother, Maacah, from her position as queen mother because she had made an obscene Asherah pole. He cut down her obscene pole, broke it up, and burned it in the Kidron Valley. Although the pagan shrines were not removed from Israel, Asa's heart remained completely faithful throughout his life. He brought into the temple of God the silver and gold and the various items that he and his father had dedicated. So there was no more war until the 35th year of Asa's reign. So that was, what, like 20 years there? That they ended up being without war? So they got all this cattle and sheep and probably more from the plunder that they took from the battle against the Cushites. That wasn't even their own stuff that they already had. That was part of what they had gained from the battle. So then they enter into a covenant wholeheartedly. It might seem a little extreme out of context that they agreed to put any dissenters to death, essentially, to basically anyone who didn't wholeheartedly seek the Lord would be put to death. But, they had so many warnings time and again about turning away from the Lord and what that would do. And there were specific warnings previously throughout the history of the Israelites about how, mixing other gods into, wherever they lived, having other gods around and idols thereof would lead them astray. So they were essentially just that dedicated to following the Lord that they said, nope, we're not even gonna have any hint of any other god that could, make us drift away from the Lord, our God. Note here at his grandmother. See, now that says his mother. Now, I think their relationship had actually been described in a way in some previous chapter. I forget exactly which one it is, so I don't want to, go back and try to find it when I'm not totally sure. But, so she had made a pole that was involved in worshiping another god. So she might not have been killed necessarily for that, but the pole was destroyed, and she no longer had her, whatever privileges came with being mother or grandmother of the king, those were revoked. Now, it says the pagan shrines were not removed from Israel. I guess that means the other kingdom of Israel that involved the other, like, 10 tribes or whatever. Because, remember, the kingdoms are split. The tribes are split into 2 different kingdoms. I mean, there was Judah and Benjamin, essentially, in the one kingdom, and then all the rest of the tribes were in the other. And the other one went, essentially, or is often referred to as the Kingdom of Israel. Whereas this one is the Kingdom of Judah. So, even though other people who were descended from God's chosen people, and really should have been part of God's chosen people, even though they still had pagan shrines and idols and things like that right near him in his kingdom, he did not turn away. He being King Asa. So yeah. He continues to stay dedicated to the Lord. He and the people of Judah. And there's no war for them for 20 years. Because it's said they gathered in Jerusalem during the 15th year. And that was when they made the covenant. So, 35 minus 15 is 20. 20 years, no war for Judah. Okay. And there you have 2 Chronicles chapter 15. Okay, so King Asa had already sort of begun making religious reforms of a sort before that big battle and before he heard from this prophet. But I guess now we read some of the results, or some of the ways God blessed the kingdom as a result of this. Essentially that, things were peaceful for 20 years, it says. And, despite this being in the middle of a time when there was otherwise a lot of fighting going on, as evidenced by the previous couple of chapters when there were multiple battles. So, yeah. Certainly, look, this is not something to take away necessarily that, God only blesses people if they obey. But the blessings certainly come a bit more frequently, even nowadays, when we trust God and obey. And not to mention, we should want to do God's will because of our relationship. But I digress. Yeah, so that's where we leave things off. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description for links to social media pages and all sorts of good stuff like that. And leave your thoughts and questions down in the comment section below there. So that's it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, until next time, stay cool, people.